Well, good morning, Rayna. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat with the audience of the Meaning Project podcast. I really appreciate it. And speaking of, like, really quick, like when I say thank you for your time, I was reviewing your CV again this morning. I mean, we had an amazing chat a while ago, but let's see. Let me pull this up here for the audience, right? Like training manager, professional speaker, workshop facilitator, MBA, and currently working on your doctorate in organizational leadership. Again, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. My goodness, what are you doing with all that?
Well, first off, good morning, Dr. Dan. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I do have a very busy schedule and I do a little bit of everything a lot of the time, but I think it's super important to slow down and, make time for the things that are worth making time for. You didn't add on that list that I do also try to work out twice a day. I believe in physical and mental health. So yoga, Zumba, and spinning are my top three.
Oh my.
So on top of everything else, being in school full time, working full time, I do make time for my physical and mental well-being because without that, I wouldn't be able to do the rest of the things that I do.
And if I remember correctly, you're an instructor of one of those, correct?
Two of those actually. So I am both Zumba certified and yoga certified. The
Oh my
yoga
goodness.
certification was new. I took a teaching vacation this summer. And so I spent 3 weeks in Mexico, two of which I was doing an intensive yoga teacher training.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Okay. Again, with all of this, that was one of the things I actually wrote in my notes from our previous conversation. Like so much energy, so much positive energy, right? And as a speaker and as somebody that gets to impact other people's lives, I mean, that's obvious that just that energy can have such a positive impact. But what is it that you share with people in your speaking, in your work to help elevate their lives?
Yes. So I've realized actually within the last month or so that I have two very specific lines that I teach and facilitate in. They're both, of course, related, but my two very favorite topics that I'm super passionate about are creating self-confidence and self-love,
Mhm.
which is so important to doing any of this. If I spend all of my time saying I can't do this, I don't have any support, who's going to care that I do any of this? I wouldn't get anywhere. But a lot of that motivation I had to learn. I had to figure out how to live life without a support system and how to do
Mhm.
things that make me happy and not sometimes that in turn doesn't make other people happy. So I had
Mhm.
to be comfortable with that. So I really am trying to help other people learn that it's okay to focus on themselves, their happiness, and that there's enough love and kindness in the world. You just have to find it, and if you can't
Mhm.
find it, you make it.
So two interesting points there. Like to thrive without a support system. What does that mean for you?
So, like for me, I am adopted. So my first set of parents, unfortunately, either passed away or didn't want me. So I came from an orphanage in India and was adopted and had a really wonderful support system while I was growing up. So I
Mhm.
was given time and resources to, have a good education and do all that. But unfortunately, in my older years, I don't have those parents anymore. I don't have family I'm close to. I have maybe two friends, and they're wonderful
Mhm.
friends.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, that I had no one, like I had no family when I applied for my doctoral program. Everyone else in the doctoral program, they say rely on your family. Tell them this is what you're doing, and it's like, well, I don't have one, but I rely on myself. I have my two very good friends
Mhm.
that I have, deemed they're my family whether they'd like it or not. And so, I have a lot of internal confidence because I've had to be strong. I mean, you can see me, but on this podcast for people that can't, I'm a woman. I'm a of Indian descent. I technically fall into the category of a double minority. So
Mhm.
growing up, I've dealt with sexism, racism, bullying, whatever it was. But I also learned karate at the age of 5 because my father said, if you're going to look like the different one and you might be bullied, he's like, I want you to be able to defend yourself. So,
Wow.
I was given those tools at a very young age to stand up for myself, to feel comfortable in who I am, because I'm the unique and slightly weird one, and I love it, and I'm not going to change. And
I think that's a beautiful example of what we talk about a lot on this podcast, the idea of taking difficulty, suffering, hard times, and turning them into achievement by learning that rather than allowing those difficult times to crush you, you have found many ways to thrive and to share that message with others.
and that's the part that I'm really, really passionate about on this line of speaking that I do, is that I had to go through it. I had to figure it out. But oh, it would have been so nice if someone had just told me the answer. If someone had just said, "Hey, did you know that you can influence your brain because it's all science, and you can encourage yourself to be happy." I had to get a 4-year degree in psychology before I learned that I could influence my own actions and my own thoughts and pull myself from that dark place. And so I always post a new mantra of the week. As I teach yoga, the very first thing is, practice for the body and the mind you brought to the mat today, because today is today. You might have been stronger yesterday. You might be happier today, and that might help encourage you to do different things. And so that's really what I was trying to do, was minimize the guesswork for other people. And my way is not the only way. My way isn't, it worked for me. It might not work for other people, but I enjoy sharing it, and I enjoy, the idea if I've made just one person's day better.
Yeah, I love that idea of oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought there.
So sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, the idea you were saying, I wish I would have had somebody there to tell me about it, and I think, yeah, that would have been nice. But how much more important, how much more meaningful, how much more did you gain by having to go through those difficult times and learn it yourself, right? You could have somebody tell you all day long that, oh yeah, you can impact your brain, but until you go do it and you realize, wow, I just changed my thoughts, I changed my behavior, I changed my attitude. All the telling in the world doesn't quite get there. It'll get you started.
Yes, it will get you started. And that's a fantastic point, Dan. You can't fix other people. I can't go to someone and say, "I've decided you're a confident person and you're going to go, get that promotion and be the next CEO." I can encourage you, but I can't make it happen. But what I can do is create a safe space and give you some of those tools. So if you choose to put that effort in, if you decide to invest in yourself and make those baby steps, and they can be so small, if you choose to do that, I can be supportive in that process. And I do that a lot with my mentoring. And we talked about my story about my favorite mentee from the fulfillment center that I used to work at, and how he failed that interview 4 times until I was like, "No, I need you to like you. And
Well,
I
let's
need you to
let's
brag
jump in on
about
that. That
you."
was such a beautiful story, right? And I don't want to. I mean, I feel selfish because I got to hear the whole thing, and I don't want to be the only one. Let's break that story down because it was truly beautiful.
Okay. So I was recruited to launch a giant fulfillment center that has, fantastic 2-day delivery and whatnot. They were opening up a fulfillment center in Cleveland, Ohio, which is my home city. And they reached out to me on LinkedIn, and I said, "Okay, like, this is something to do." And you asked nicely. And so I was a manager there, and the gentleman I'm talking about, he was one of the hourly team leads. And I'll be honest, he did my job better than I did my job. He did my job better than me and 6 of my peers in management did our jobs. He was that good. I didn't directly manage him. So that's like a little, additional nugget of the story. Like, I had no actual responsibilities to him, nor did I have the opportunities to see him succeed and shine unless I was paying attention. Right. And I found out that he had failed the interview process to become a manager 4 or 5 times. And yeah, and again, he did my job better than I did my job, and he couldn't pass the interview to actually get paid for and recognized to do the work.
Why do you think that is?
So part of it is the interview structure, and I have a lot of opinions on corporate interviews and
I was going
corporate.
to ask if this was some kind of standardized test or assessment,
Yes.
or okay.
Yep, it
In a
is.
big organization like that, there's a lot of those standardized assessments that make it kind of can be
Yep.
difficult.
It's like a 2 week process. You have to pass a test, you have to pass 3 interviews, you have to have your metrics in line. There's a whole lot. But the part that really matters is that this interview process, there were correct answers.
Mm.
And you had to be able to sell yourself and hit the key points of what you needed to say and show that you had the correct answers for this test. It wasn't an interview, it wasn't a two-way street, it was an exam, and it was a very stressful one at that. And so it was a challenge. And what was really challenging is that my friend, he didn't have the confidence to say nice things about himself.
Mm.
And I found this out over our first beer when I was like, let's practice some, interview questions.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about a time you did something amazing at the fulfillment center that should be recognized. And he looked at me, he's like, I don't know. He's like, I just do my job. That's it. That was his answer. I'm like, no, friend, I have seen you work miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, okay, here we go. Let's take a step back. We're not ready for those practice interview questions. I'm like, name some good things you've done. Nothing. Nothing. So instead of this becoming an interview prep, we had to take a step back, and I realized he didn't have that confidence to brag about himself. He didn't even realize how amazing he was. Yeah. And how good he was at his job. And so I took the 2 weeks I had with him before his interview, and we only worked on confidence. We worked on self-bragging. We worked on, the stories you share at home and say, my coworkers are idiots because they couldn't figure out X, Y, and Z. We figured out how to reframe that in a positive way of, right. I figured out X, Y, and Z, and then was able to get an entire team of 70 people to do what I needed them to do. Yeah.
That's such an amazing example of just positive coaching, almost bordering on psychotherapy, but just leading this person to understand, no, you do amazing. Everybody else sees it. Mm-hmm. You do amazing things. How do we talk about it? I love that word, reframing, right? Mm-hmm. There's such a balance between being, bragging and being boastful, and recognizing yeah, I can do good work and I can help other people do better work, much like you did there.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think too, that's knowing the technique versus doing the technique. Like you mentioned earlier, I can tell you how to reframe, but unless you internalize it and you choose to do it, you're not going to get those benefits from it. Mm-hmm. And in this case, he had the added benefit that he was my friend and we were at a bar, and I could just be very loud and, as I call it, aggressively motivational. And I'm like, nope, you're my friend. I'm not going to let you be mean to my friend. I'm going to sit here until we figure out stories you feel comfortable sharing and bragging about.
Yeah, there's something about a little bit of coaching with a good beer to help loosen the thought process and encourage creativity.
Yeah, and it's a situation too, right? The environment is different. You have people who are happy to be there. They're positive. You are happy. You're drinking something that you like. Hopefully, if you're ordering things you don't like at the bar, you're doing it wrong.
Such a good point.
And so, it's a different mindset than being in a fulfillment center surrounded by the goals and the rates and the people who are judging you and the people who know you failed 4 or 5 times before. It's different.
Yeah. Well, and I use the word that this individual is able to perform miracles. And for most of us out there, these giant fulfillment centers that we use on a near daily basis and wind up getting our goods a few hours later, that is nothing short of feeling like a miracle. So, I mean, I'm sure we could go pretty deep into just how the heck that happens, but that's not why we're here. Let's talk a little bit about, although, man, that would be fascinating. I'm always curious when I click that button and a little truck shows up a couple hours later. And look, I'm not near any metropolitan area. It's fascinating.
Oh yeah, the logistics. They always say they're not a company of selling things. They're not a retail company. They are a logistics company who happens to sell things.
Yeah. Well,
and we could get into that. But wrapping up the story on my friend
sure,
at
sure,
this
yeah.
giant fulfillment center, right? And he felt pretty good. Of course, he still had the interview nerves. And I do want to just sideway just a little. His actual direct manager, his direct report, or his direct, as we call him, his manager's manager. So would be a sideways step from my manager. So 2 levels up from him, 1 level up and sideways from me. And this guy, operations manager, completely, entirely responsible for the entire shift, whatever have you. He comes up to me and he's like, hey, he's like, I heard what you're doing for your friend, that this person on my team. And he's like, I just wanted to say thanks. And I got so angry, Dr. Dan, I got so angry. I saw red that time. And I looked at him and I said, no. I was like, don't thank me. I said, do better. Because you're in a position, he was in a position, that interview process probably didn't even have to happen if he had enough faith in this person, this hourly associate who was working miracles.
Well, I think that's one of the frustrating things with the corporate structure in many places is you got to check the boxes to do the things. And sometimes, we read a lot that flexibility and ability to have creativity in different endeavors is better for retention, better for people, better for human beings. But unfortunately, the mechanization of a lot of this doesn't allow for that. So I can understand. I was going to quite, whoa, what do you mean? Why do you got angry? But no, that makes complete sense.
Yeah. And that right there, that anger was actually what I turned into passion on how to teach other people to be a holistic leader, because I cared. And I have so many stories of times that I cared when other people didn't. And it got to the point where I said, you know what? I'm going to build an army of people who are overly confident and kind. And that's it. And
that's a powerful combination, confident and kind. My goodness, what would the world be like if we had a whole army of those kinds of people?
Yep. And so that's when I started saying that jokingly. And it wasn't until this year I decided to start saying it professionally too. But wrapping up on that story, not only did this hourly associate who worked miracles get his promotion, he got the promotion flying colors. I think he had the best interview scores, quite frankly.
Wow.
And on top of that, after that, he never had to do that process again. Once you get from hourly to salary, you don't do it again. He ended up getting 2 more, he got to launch 2 more fulfillment centers, his choice.
Wow.
Pay raises, and I think he's now 2.5 levels higher than where he was 2.5
what
years
time
ago.
frame? How long ago was that?
2.5, 3 years.
Wow. That is so. How have you taken that story and honed it down into your speaking and coaching? Because I mean, that one example is so, first of all, that's a great example of you doing what we talk about a lot here. You said you had no direct supervision, you had no direct responsibility to this individual, but you stepped outside yourself to help another human being succeed. And I'm sure there's so much meaning in that. But look at what it's, that story, and I love that story when we talked, a couple of weeks ago, not only helped that person, but launched you into amazing directions as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, I had done a lot for people before then, but that pivotal moment where I was in a position of power and I could actually do something with it. And I was coming from a place of kindness. And that's really, really what mattered, was that I had that combination. I could do something and I chose to do it. And I got a text from this friend. He's now in Arizona, because that's where he chooses to be. With a company as big as this fulfillment center, you can say, I would love to launch a building over there. I want to take operations for that building in Phoenix, Arizona, because I can, because my metrics are amazing and I make you a gajillion dollars a day. I want what I want. Oh, and also I want to work from home now. Surprise.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's talk about that before we get into kind of your message and speaking, like the idea of working from home. I know that was something that was really cool. Your energy when we spoke We were all over the place talking about what we were going to talk about in the podcast. That was
Mhm.
awesome. But the coolest thing well, many cool things. One of the thing I get to use in my life that I didn't know about was trusted house sitters, right? So tell me a
Yes.
little bit, like I I talk often about how meaningful discovering new situations, travel. Actually, I'm wearing a travel sweatshirt right now. Um, these things can be, and you embody that with this trusted house sitters and other things. Talk a little bit about that, will you?
Well, you keep saying trusted house sitters. So first off, no affiliation. No, we aren't getting paid by them
Right,
to
of
actually
course.
say that. But it's a house sitting app. So basically, you sign up either as a pet sitter or as a pet owner, and it's a cash-free transaction of, well, just kindness and respect and responsibility. As a sitter, I get to pet sit wherever I apply to pet sit. And in exchange, I get to stay in their home for free.
Hmm.
And so it's fantastic. I've been doing it for about 6 months now, and I haven't paid rent for those 6 months that I've been doing it.
Wow, that's kind of
And
cool.
I get to hang out. I get to meet a new cat. I now know what day geckos are. Uh, I'm just these crazy things, and it's not like a hotel. You don't just say this is what I want.
Hmm.
There's a whole process. So to even be on the site, you have to go through a background check, both sides, sitters
Hmm.
and owners, and you have to put up a profile, and you have to say who you are and what you kind of stand for, represent, where your expertise are in the pet sitting world. But in that aspect, it's safer than like an Airbnb or a Verbo, because we do have that additional front work beforehand, and there
Hmm.
is a membership fee because something has to cover that background check.
Right.
And you see things that you like. You see, ooh, I really like that sit in Chicago,
Hmm.
and they cats, and it looks like it's in a good neighborhood, and the owner looks super nifty. And so you say, I'm available for the dates that you've posted. I love your house. Like, this is why I'd be great for your cat. And then the owners get to choose who they're allowing to watch their fur babies or not fur babies, depending on what you're pet sitting.
Gecko
And
babies.
gecko babies. And yeah, you just kind of make that connection. You have a relationship before you even go there.
Hmm.
And for me, I love that aspect because I've actually kept in touch with every single person that I've pet sat for.
Wow.
And even I'm going to Chicago in 9 days, and that girl is someone who works remotely and she wants to travel more. And so she has to, if there's time, actually grab a cup of coffee with me to hear how I use the platform on my side. So she might be able to do it on her side and get a
Hmm.
little bit more travel and fun in. Because, a single female who wants to travel and works remotely, who does that sound like?
Right, right. That is such a cool thing. Now, where what's the in the past 6 months? What's the coolest place or city you've been to?
See, that's a hard one. Like you said, you
Really?
travel to learn. You travel to learn and understand and do. And it's so different. Every state is different. Every city
Mhm.
is different. They all have some really good places and good things that you can learn and good people. I will tell you, there's one place I will never go to again. But and I won't mention it. I don't know what
Okay.
your listeners are
Well,
from.
hopefully it's not Pittsburgh because I know last time we talked, you were in Pittsburgh. Personally, one of
Loved
my
Pittsburgh.
favorite cities. So, and I think
Yes.
you had a good time there.
Go Penguins, right? Pittsburgh
Pittsburgh
Penguins.
Penguins and the old
Yep.
football team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, yep.
Yep. No, Pittsburgh is fantastic. And
Awesome.
Pittsburgh's 2 hours away from my home. So I've been there 4, 5, 6 times now.
Gotcha.
And I still am learning the city and finding new things. But
Yeah.
I go to a lot of music events and stuff. So I've actually run into some of the same people multiple times. And it's
Mhm.
like, hey, we're friends now. I've seen you twice and you remembered me. We're now friends.
Well, and I
And
love the idea. You mentioned like differences in locations and state to state. And I was actually just talking about this earlier this week in a coaching session, encouraging people to get out. When we talk about travel, like of course international travel is amazing. You truly. I was talking about studying different ancient history. I was in
mm,
Greece earlier this year, and seeing something that is thousands of years old is truly amazing, meaningful. There's just in the US, we don't see things that old unless you're a geologist and you're really into rocks. You can look at it and be amazed by it, but that's not all of us. And that's also true, not just seeing things from the ancient world or a few hundred years old if you travel Europe or 100 years old in the state. But you're so right, like culture from state to state location, even in the same state, from north to south, can be so different and
Oh,
so
yeah.
inspiring, meaningful, enjoyable to experience. And I just love the idea that you are out there truly living that. That's awesome.
Yes. A couple other things of traveling state to state, you become a better driver. I thought I was a good driver, and I am an amazing driver for Ohio. Um, you ever
I
heard
know a
of the
few people in
Michigan,
Ohio, and they are not very good drivers.
which they have no excuse. More than half our state is cornfield. You should be able to drive straight on a cornfield lane. Just don't run over tractors.
You're
You're
right.
fine. But no, I never realized. And as I travel, I've had to get more comfortable, more of that growing under pressure, and
Mhm.
in your darker, less happy times. Michigan lefts, where you
The
can't make a
famous
left
Michigan
turn.
left. For those
Michigan
of you who
lefts.
don't know what a Michigan left is, we're not going to take the time to describe it because it really is one of the most confounding things in driving, other than driving on the other side of the road in some places in Europe. A Michigan left is insane.
Yes.
Google it, folks. It's really you'll have an interesting time.
Yep. So Michigan lefts, I had to learn those. Indy round and rounds. They
No, no, the roundabout. Yes,
well,
Indianapolis and their roundabouts, they love them. And apparently, the statistic is that a roundabout prevents accidents in some amazing way. And like, I got used to them pretty quickly. But this was a few years ago. My younger daughter, we were letting her drive, and of course, she was getting her license and everything. Said, "Let's go visit some friends in Indy. You can drive." And I wasn't thinking on the way there and I told her, I said, "Hun, the amount of roundabouts you just went through in the past hour are more than your older sister has been through in her entire life." And I mean, she was sweating, she was struggling, but boy, well, we all survived, so it was a good thing.
I mean, they're terrifying,
If you've
especially
never
when
seen
people
one
do them
before and
right.
you come up to that, it's pretty difficult.
But so the driving is different in every state, right?
It's
And
interesting.
when you're driving and you're going anywhere from 30 to 80 miles an hour and then something happens, you're just like, what? I
Hmm.
I was in Louisiana and they have train tracks that go across the freeways. I'm
What?
not kidding. I'm going 80 miles an hour in Louisiana, and I see on the side of the freeway a sign, the railroad track sign, the orange, yellow, whatever color you want to
Wow.
call it, and with
Yeah.
and I'm just like, what?
What do I do here? That's interesting.
What do I
That's one state I haven't been to. That's in. I'll have to get there and be aware of that. So,
do?
I
Yes,
wanted to move to okay. Let's talk about your message, right? As
yes.
I look back, I mean, empowerment,
Mm-hmm.
self-love,
Mm-hmm.
confidence, women empowerment. Wh- what do you bring to the people you speak to?
So we talked all everything we've talked about so far was that self-confidence and
Hmm.
self-love and all of that.
Hmm.
But I also teach on the other side how to develop those things in other people, how to be a holistic leader and care about other people, treat
Hmm.
humans like humans.
Hmm.
And so what I bring to the table is confidence
Hmm.
and power, but
Hmm.
I bring an opportunity to focus on a positive change.
Hmm.
So whether it's for yourself, whether you're learning how to love yourself and you're learning that you bring something to the table, and I didn't say it this time, but I told you last time, at my darkest, at my worst time, I used to apologize for existing. I
Hmm.
used to, if I made a mistake, or even if I didn't, if I said something that I internally thought was odd, I'd be like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry I'm here. I'm so sorry I exist. And I don't want anyone to feel like that. And
No,
so
I mean, that is just that statement. I remember when you said that previously, like, apologize for existing. How sad.
I didn't realize it was sad at the time. Like
Mm,
it was just so normal. And
wow.
so I am, like I said, I'm here to help facilitate change. because sometimes you don't know what you can ask for or what you can do or what you bring to the table, and the list goes on until someone just says, hey, why'd you say that? I don't want you to apologize for existing. Sure, you said something silly, but one mistake doesn't mean you shouldn't exist.
Right. Well, and let me ask you, what helped get you, what helped, I'm sure it wasn't one event, but a series or a process. What helped you to change that mindset?
So a little bit. Sometimes you always get that mom type person that's like, oh no, don't say that, sweetie, don't do that. And you always brush them off because they're
Hmm.
just nice people.
Hmm.
But I think it really hit when I just kept getting told by other people, like, hey, I'm so happy I met you. I can't believe you did this for me, or I can't believe you stopped to, check on me in this parking lot because I looked lost.
Hmm.
Those little things. And I had to tell myself, like, okay, wait a minute. I bring so much good to my day and to others people's day if I take the time to focus on the good things and not things.
Yeah.
So surely I made a mistake. Sure, sometimes my personality is a lot, and I
Hmm.
have been told it is a lot. And that used to really hurt, and it made me smaller. But I am that person that has been hurt. So your choices are hurt people, or hurt people see other hurt people.
That's beautiful
And
to
you
see somebody. Yeah.
see someone.
Hmm.
All you have to do is ask, how are you, twice,
Hmm.
because most people are conditioned the first time to say, I'm fine. And if you are observant and you can pay attention to that first, I'm fine, I'm good.
Hmm.
What, life's great. If you pay attention, and again, hurt people can see other hurt people, you can stop and say, nope, I'm going to take time and I'm going to ask second time. No, really, how are you doing? Are you sure you're fine? You don't look fine. What do you want to talk about it? And just that little bit, that little something. And again, it's something that I wish other people had done for me when
Yeah,
I was younger.
absolutely.
And so I can do it for other people now. I mean,
That's
this is a story that happened literally 2 days ago. I was walking on a gym track, the thing above all the weights,
Yep,
and
yep,
you have to take 10 laps if you want to reach a mile.
yep. Know exactly
And
what you.
I was meandering because I didn't feel like being there. And I started accidentally walking next to this other woman. And she and I started chit-chatting, oh, weather, whatever. And I don't know how it came up. She's a school teacher. She teaches first graders. She is saying it's super frustrating because dealing with Gen Alpha, who spent a lot of their formative early preschool years remotely and not around other
Mhm.
people socializing. She was saying it's challenging and the parents are challenging. And I was like, oh, I'm like, tell me more or whatever. And man, I hate to admit this, but I accidentally made this woman cry. So she started opening up and she started tearing up, and I'm like, oh no, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. And she goes, no, she's like, I just have no one to talk to about this. She's like,
Mm,
these are things I wouldn't talk to my family about because I don't want to bring them down. But she's just like, I just have so many emotions and it feels so good to let them out. And
okay,
so
so let's
we
let's go ahead. I mean, you just so many things you've said today have pulled back the curtain on good coaching and psychotherapy. Like, yes, when we're feeling that way, just talking to another human being that cares or being the human being that cares is so important and so meaningful. That
mhm,
poor individual obviously needed to get that off her chest and just being able to do that, having somebody say, "Hey, how you doing?" and actually caring
actually caring.
was
And
amazing.
I don't know her name. We didn't stay in touch. I will probably never see her again because I changed cities and I won't go to that gym after 2 weeks from now. It'll take me another year or two to end up back there if I ever
Wow.
go back there.
Wow.
But I was able to do that, very small term. One thing though, just super important, like I was in the right space to be helpful and to
Mhm.
care and to give that shoulder, but it's also okay not to be in that space.
Yeah.
That is something that I think too many people don't realize, is that you can be kind, but you can also have boundaries for yourself in that same moment,
Right.
because there have been plenty of times where I have told someone, I want to be helpful to you, for you, whatever. But in this moment, I don't have the emotional bandwidth to take on this challenge, this problem, your emotions, whatever it may be. And that also is something that's learned. And it's one of the things I talk about while building that confidence is you have to be able to take care of yourself, and you have to be able to say, even if you're not saying no, not now. You know, the day my cat died, I really didn't want to hear about someone's bad day at work.
That's, you know, I think that's so true. And we talk about that a lot, like the idea of if you're struggling or burned out or struggling with compassion fatigue, you can't be of service to other people. You have to dial it back and take care of yourself, which goes back to exactly what you talked about in the beginning today is working out a couple times a day. For some of us, just getting a workout once a week, or a couple times a week, or getting started working out, finding that self-care routine is so important so that not only are we helping ourselves, but we can become a better person in helping others. So
it's a two-way street, right?
It's a two-way street.
It's a
Rayna,
two-way
this has been
street.
an amazing conversation. I want to wrap up with, I'm going to experiment with you. I was on an experiment with a peer of ours the other day where he was trying a new introduction. I'm going to try a new closing. You get to be the first one to answer this question. You ready?
Oh no. Okay.
So what is one thing this week that you experienced or did that you found to be extremely meaningful?
Can I use the story of making the lady cry at the gym?
No, you already shared that story. Now you got to come up with something new.
Okay, something that I did this week.
Sure.
That
or
was
this
meaningful.
month.
This
in
month.
the past few weeks.
In the past few weeks, that was meaningful. Well, I attended the SHRM, the Ohio SHRM conference.
Cool.
And I volunteered to do some of the introductions. And the introductions, all they asked of the volunteers was to read a piece of paper. And I don't know if you've noticed, but my personality doesn't lend itself very well to boring
Really,
and
I couldn't
reading a piece of
imagine.
paper.
No kidding.
And so what I did is I showed up to each of the speakers of event times that a little bit early, and I said, hi, I'm your volunteer. I'm going to be introducing you. Quick, tell me something. What do I need to know? Tell me your story. Let me connect with you now in this moment. So that way, when I'm introducing you, I will glance at the paper and I will read the words that are on it, but I can add that extra thing because I want to set you up for success, because it doesn't matter how many times you've spoken on a stage. It's terrifying for the first like 10 seconds, right?
Yep.
And so I'm like, how can I make a difference for you in this moment? And how can I make an impact for the people who showed up today? Because they don't want to hear someone reading a piece of paper.
Right, exactly.
They want some jokes. They want to be put in that right mindset. They want that. And I had people come up, and the speakers are like, wow, like, thank you so much just for setting that tone and doing that. And that's something I want to be on that stage someday. I want to do that more within a reasonable amount. And so start by giving back, start by doing the things you hope other people do for you. And so I think I mean, at least for the 3 speakers that I chose to learn, build that relationship and share their actual personalities on that stage, I think I made some meaningful difference for them.
Absolutely. That is so awesome. I mean, 3 very meaningful stories there. And what a great example of, you know, sometimes just by being a good human and reaching out and trying to connect with people, we can do really amazing things. Thank you so much. Again, recognizing what a busy schedule you have. I so appreciate you taking time to chat with us and to share your experience and you know your goals and what you offer the people you come speak to. It has been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dan. It was absolutely my pleasure to be here. And if you ever have some open spaces or if you need help with other things, let me know. Also, like I said, I'll be in Chicago, which is very close to your neck of the woods.
It
So
sure is.
maybe.
Where can people find out more if they want to find out more about what you're doing or where they can reach you or have you come speak? Is there a website, LinkedIn? What's the best way to contact you?
Yep. So right now, I am on LinkedIn and on Instagram, Speaker Rayna. Both of those, Insta and LinkedIn, you can find me on Speaker Rayna, or if you know my full name, if that's going to be listed somewhere,
We
it
will
is
make
right.
sure that is in the show notes. Absolutely.
Yep. Rayna Steigman. Really, just go look at how it's spelled. Copy and paste that. Nice German last name to go with this, you know, just very culturally diverse person.
There you go.
And so LinkedIn, Instagram, and then I will have a website soon. It is in the works, and that'll actually just be speakerrayna.com.
Awesome. We'll make sure that's all in the show notes. Again, thank you so much, Rayna. It was a pleasure. You take care.
Thank you, Dan.